Hello people, I'm your host Dom the Big D, and as you can already see in this video I'm going to be reviewing something pretty old, but hey, me and Might and Magic games go way back. Might and Magic is easily one of my favorite game franchises ever, at least up until Heroes of Might and Magic 5, because Ubisoft has no imagination and turned the new games into generic Warcraft-looking examples of mediocrity. I'm still salty about Ubisoft screwing up the franchise and not making any more Might and Magic games because the bad ones didn't sell well and refusing to sell the IP to someone else. But enough of that, this video is about something with a lot more unique character to it. Might and Magic 6 Mandate of Heaven. Most people probably know Might and Magic games for the Hero spin-offs, which were so good they cast a shadow of obscurity on the original Might and Magic series that used to be first-person party-based tactical RPGs. Man, describing the genre alone sounds pretty crazy, but
all of this just works. I'm not kidding.
Might and Magic 6 is the first game out of 3 created in this 2.5D engine that made Might and Magic 6 to 8 arguably the best games in the series. The way it works is pretty unusual, but I like it a lot. It's a shame I cannot find anything similar in any more modern games. In this game you control a party of 4 heroes, but see from the first-person perspective. The control scheme is reminiscent of Doom games. You move with arrow keys and kill stuff by pressing A for attack. The main difference is that you can also enter and exit turn-based combat mode anytime you want, and that's what I really like. It's a completely optional function, but you will want to use it 90% of the time to make the game more manageable. To add to the sense of freedom, the game allows you to go wherever you want, however you want, unlike the majority of the games in the genre that make you stick to a grid. But let's start from the very beginning of the game before I start rambling too much. Although I already feel I might get way too in-depth with this review. As you turn on the game, a CGI intro that aged very poorly tries to set the tone of the game but doesn't do it too well. The art style looks nothing like the rest of the game, and the only thing it told was that some monsters came from the space and they're going to destroy the planet if I don't stop them. Then before starting a new game I also get a wall of text telling me that there's a new religious cult and some political BS. After that I can finally make my team of 4 people. In Might and Magic 6 they used photos of real people for all character portraits, and I absolutely love how cheesy they look. I mean, they all look like porn actors, American actor who tries to look like a Russian, an actual Russian, Obelix, or Johnny Depp. I'm pretty sure these people are the developers of the game, and I by no way mean to offend them. They did a great job, but 90% of the time I find FMV stuff to be pretty bad, in a really entertaining way. But the portraits don't affect anything. The most important thing are the classes, and there are 6 of those. 3 of them are pure classes, for lack of a better word. Those are Knight, the weapons master who cannot cast any spells, Cleric, the healer and the only irreplaceable class in any party, and the Sorcerer, which is self-explanatory. Then there are 3 hybrid classes who can acquire more skills, but do them slightly worse than the pure classes. Those are Paladin, hybrid between a Knight and a Cleric, Druid, a mix of a Sorcerer and a Cleric, and Archer, who is not even that great of an archer, because he's actually a mix of a knight and a sorcerer, which makes him something more like a battle mage. Each character also has his own stats and skills, and choosing the right ones can be pretty tricky without the help of a manual and tips from other people. Some stats like might or endurance are pretty easy to understand. Then there is speed. Speed decides who takes an action first in a turn-based mode, and if you have really high speed and recovery rate you can do multiple things before your enemy can do anything. Intellect and personality can be pretty confusing as well. Intellect is easier. It makes spellcasters be able to cast more and stronger spells. I thought personality was only used to be a better merchant and other things that require speaking, but it actually works the same as intellect but for healers. So sorcerers and archers use intellect, clerics and paladins use personality. I'm not sure how druids work though, maybe they use both? And then there's also luck stat. I still have absolutely no idea what it does after all these years. Then there are skills. Every class starts with 4 skills and can learn a different set of them during the game. There are plenty of different weapon skills, like bows, swords, axes and so on. Each weapon has its own pros and cons. There are 3 types of armor skills: plate, shin and leather. Some characters can also use shields. Spellcasters can learn 4 types of elemental magic, and healers learn body, spirit and mind magic. During late game, some classes can also learn light and dark types of magic. And then there are also plenty of utility skills like disarming traps, bodybuilding, alchemy and many more. So there are plenty to choose from, and since skill points are pretty limited, you have to plan things ahead. It's really easy to screw up during your first playthrough. After playing these games for hundreds of hours, I can point you to some of my go-to setups. As I mentioned, healer is the most important role, so take a cleric and invest plenty of points into body magic, so you could heal yourselves, and spirit magic, so you could cast buffs. And since clerics need a lot of personality, I usually get them the merchant skill as well, so I could sell my trash for more gold. Every other class is more or less up to you, but you'll always want someone who can identify and repair items and disarm traps. Knights are good for utility skills, since they don't need to invest skill points in magic. It's also nice to have someone who can cast elemental spells, just so you could cast such spells as Wizard's Eye, that shows where enemies are on the minimap, Fly, and Town Portal. Of course, nothing stops you from making a crazy party that consists of 4 knights or something like that, but you'll have a harder time, and this game is hard as it is, believe me. Since it's the first game on a new engine for the series, it still lacks a lot of quality of life improvements, and even some crucial mechanics that were only introduced in later games. The mechanic I missed the most was being able to move in turn-based combat. This puts you in a big disadvantage already, because your enemies can move every turn. Fighting in real time is also not a great idea for most of the game, because Might and Magic 6 has the highest enemy density of the 3 games, not only making it the grindiest one, but also the hardest, because your party will be pretty squishy and heavily outnumbered for most of the game. After you're done creating your party, you are free to do almost anything you want, with the only limitation being enemies that are way stronger than you. So unless you know a whole bunch of exploits, you'll want to do things in a certain order. And that order is only decided by what enemies you can and cannot defeat yet, because most of the quests in the game are completely optional, which is pretty interesting in a way. A lot of NPCs will even tell you that quests in this game are opportunities to earn some gold rather than something you absolutely must do. But you'll still want to do most of them for that sweet XP. So you travel through the first several zones, slaughtering old people, Indian women, thieves, and black people by the dozens. Not sure what led to such interesting choice of enemies, but I prefer to butchering innocent wildlife quite a bit. You know, I actually find it really interesting how the game pretty much forces you to learn all the shortcomings of the engine in order to cheese through fights first, before letting you play properly. Knowing how to exploit enemy AI by getting them stuck on doorways and such is basically an essential part of gameplay. You need to spend quite a bit of time to get spells that allow you to fight properly. Anyway, after several hours, your party will have a lot of more equipment and skills in their arsenal. By then you'll get to Free Haven, the place where you get the main quest from the council that resides there. You'll have to travel to 6 different places and help their lords with certain tasks. and you'll be doing that for most of the game up until the couple last missions. Along the way you'll want to do as many character promotion quests as you can. Each class has 2 promotions that improves the character's base stats and allows the character to acquire new skills and improve the old ones further. Those quests can be anything like acquiring a certain item, clearing out some dungeon, or praying at a specific altar at a specific time. The thing with Might and Magic games is that they require you to explore a lot. The quest log is not very informative and the map barely helps. It doesn't have any quest markers or anything like that. So you'll have to dive into all of the dungeons blind and see if you can complete them or not by trial and error. And in a way it's real charming. It gives a great sense of freedom, but it's a double-edged sword because it's also easy to get lost and frustrated. The game drags on for tons of hours, so I don't feel any shame for looking up some guides to see where I need to go in order to complete some quests. And since there's barely any actual story to the game, I'd like to discuss the main gameplay loop before talking about the quests more. Since the game is heavily exploration based, it has quite a huge open world, which is divided into many areas. Each of them is harder than the one before, but it's not always true with dungeons, and you'll most likely spend a lot more time in the dungeons than in the open world. And most zones have a town, or at least a couple of houses you can visit, and it sounds kind of amusing, but you'll want to visit every single house in the game. And each house may have up to 3 people living in it, and every single person does different things. Some can train you skills, some may give you quests, some may buy certain items for a nice sum of money, and some may tell you something completely useless. The skill trainers are the most important ones, but good luck remembering where each of them live, because they only train one specific skill each, and you need to meet the requirements to train these skills. So you'll have to go back and forth between these cities a lot, just barging into a bunch of random houses. Of course, there are a lot of enemies in the overworld, but there's no real need of killing them all aside from farming XP and granting yourself safer travels for some time, because enemies respawn after several in-game months. And then there are the dungeons. Oh boy, the dungeons are full of evil. Aside from simple monsters, they are full of traps and puzzles. Even their layout is often a puzzle by itself, because minimap doesn't help much in more complicated places with several floors. As for the traps, the only way to evade them in Might and Magic 6 is by trial and error as well. There is the perception skill, but it's not worth upgrading in this game at all, because unlike in later games, it doesn't show you where the traps are. You'll also have to look for a lot of hidden buttons and levers, but it's not that bad, though it can be frustrating if you miss one and get stuck. And even the chests in this game are trapped. It's pure evil. Not even loot comes without downsides. And if your disarm trap skill is not high enough, these chests have the potential to kill your whole party. God knows how many times I reloaded a save right before opening a chest in order not to get my healer killed, because if he gets killed, that means I have to go all the way to the nearest temple to heal my party, and I need to do that enough for it to get annoying as it is, because some enemies can also cause various status effects or even remove all your spell points in one hit. That's just demonic.
Godsypelisårbar reputation. There's nothing else in donation to a local church can't fix.
As far as status effects go, some are a lot worse than others. For example, if someone gets paralyzed or stoned, and you don't have the spell to heal them, you're screwed. But things like Insanity can even be useful, because while it cripples your ability to cast spells, it enhances your melee damage. And you know what I really hated as well? Enemies who break items. It's not even that bad if you have someone who can repair items, but it's super annoying. Might and Magic 6 is also the only game out of the three where enemies can break your accessories, and it's pretty hard to notice if a ring or an amulet gets damaged. And the repair skill doesn't share between your party in the inventory screen, so you have to give all the broken items to one guy, making inventory management insane when you're also carrying a bunch of loot. I actually love the grid-based inventory Tetris, but some quality of life things there would be nice. And speaking of loot, there's a lot of it in this game, but most of it is pretty useless. I did find some items that made me chuckle though, for example an amulet that is pretty much an alarm clock on a chain, or this head that gives you autism by doing nothing else other than lowering your intellect stat. I swear this game has so much untapped meme potential. The whole art style adds to the feeling that anything in this game can be oddly funny. Everything is alright when it comes to the environment. The little animations inside buildings are just lovely, but characters is where it's at. I already told that I find the playable characters amusing. There's a little more FMV in this game, like portraits of random NPCs and an occasional cutscene after completing one of the main quests. The enemies are a whole nother beast. They were clearly modeled in 3D but appear as 2D sprites in the game in order to make it easier for the hardware of the time running the game. They give a bit of this uncanny feeling, but I love it. The thing is, everyone looks like someone straight out of an old, low-budget high fantasy show. The outfits often look very quirky. Most characters wear skin-tight pants and look like they're participating in some poor Renaissance fair. And I hope you like gold, because there are literal tons of bling in this game. Most of the stronger armors are made of gold. A lot of enemies like Minotaurs, for example, also wear a lot of golden accessories. I never understood why golden equipment is considered good in games. Gold is not a sturdy metal at all. I guess it's showing your dominance to the enemies that counts. Plus, even with all the silly stuff, some parts of the game can get pretty macabre. And even though I can talk about these weird design choices for hours, I really happen to love them in the end. They just give the game so much charm. The looks are simply unforgettable, and that goes for the soundtrack as well. It is absolutely beautiful. A lot of it is actually rearrangements of classical songs as far as I know. I really enjoy slaughtering these old beardos to such relaxing tunes. It's only a shame that with this game being so long and grindy, I tend to eventually turn off the music in order to listen to a podcast or some new music album. And as I promised, I'll talk a bit about the quests and the story for the last part of the review. Discovering new quests and dungeons in the game you can actually beat is always satisfying. Although the dungeons I remember the best are the ones that annoyed me the most, and those were not optional. For example, there are these dwarven mines in the beginning of the game and they're infested with slimes. Thing is, those slimes are completely resistant to all types of damage except elemental, and at that point in the game, my spellcasters never have enough spell points and decent spells to deal with all the enemies, so I have to either overlevel quite a bit or cheese my way through somehow. There are some magic ones that allow you to cast a couple of spells without learning them, but they suck in this game. Then when you meet the ruler of Castle Iron Fist, For some reason you have to babysit the prince, but the little prick escapes immediately and you have to get him back. That quest took me the longest time to complete because he keeps changing his location. It's easy to figure out that he's traveling with a circus, but I have no idea if there's even some kind of timetable telling where the circus will be at any moment. Also, towards the end of the game, when you are granted the favor of all 6 lords of the land, you can access the oracle. It turns out that it is just a computer that medieval people have no idea how to control. It's also busted, so you need to collect 4 crystals or something to repair it. One of them is in this castle full of liches and flying eye things. That place is a nightmare for any party. The enemies there can easily remove any buffs from your party, and buffs are very important. They also have range attacks, and I'm pretty sure they are resistant to magic. And the flying eye monsters things will fly, so melee fighters can't deal with them either. And of course, there are like 500 enemies in that place. I think any sane person would rather just run past all of the enemies to get to the chest at the end of the dungeon and then teleport the hell out of there. But yeah, other than that, the game is great. By the way, I've been reading that Might and Magic 6 is the most unbalanced game of the 3, and I completely agree, but people say that it's unbalanced to player's advantage towards the end of the game, when you master light and dark magic. I kept waiting for the moment I would eventually become overpowered, but that never really happened. I might just be really bad at using my spellcasters, but things changed for me during the last couple of hours of the game. After fixing the oracle, you can get, drumroll please, laser blasters. No, I don't think he understands how it works. It's not some weird mace, you idiot. To get the blasters, you need to get past some drones that can one-shot you real fast, but I managed to cheese my way through straight to the loot. Those blasters by themselves are not that impressive, but they do have an insane low recovery rate, and when you equip one on every character. So having unlimited power, you can go to the last dungeon, the almost Giga-esque looking alien demon nest, and kill their queen. And depending on how you do things in this last dungeon, you can get either the good or the bad ending. The good ending, that really annoying prince I was looking for half of the game, hosts a lame party for us. In the bad one, the whole planet explodes. I actually liked the bad ending quite a bit. I could say it's so bad it's good. And yeah, even just after completing the game, I can barely remember what the story was even about. The ending itself wasn't that satisfying, but it's the journey that matters. And I'm not even joking, in this game it really is that way. Even though I struggled for at least 60 hours or so, I still liked the game a lot due to its unique atmosphere and gameplay mechanics. It's great, really hard but worth attention. I don't think I would want to replay the whole thing again just because of the unrefined gameplay, but I probably will come back to it sometime later just to get some of that old school RPG feel. And that's my thoughts on Might and Magic 6, Mandate of Heaven. I'm pretty dizzy for speaking for so long, so I'll go now. Oh yeah, almost forgot. The album that fits the game. I've been looking for some folky, instrumental stuff, since that's what Might and Magic 6 is all about, but in the end I settled with Prince of the Poverty Line by Skyclad. The album is even older than the game, and it's one of the best folk metal albums of all time, period. Go listen to it, and see you a couple of eternities later when I finish Might and Magic 7.